Hello, everyone. Welcome to Shelf Space with Kino Lorber, where we talk about all things physical media with Kino Lorber's head of acquisitions, Frank Tarzi. Today, we have some very special guests Connor Ratliff, Griffin Newman, and Patrick Cotnoir from the George Lucas Talk Show. Today's episode will also be co hosted by Kino Lorber's Director of Media Production and Operations, Rob Sweeney, who produces home entertainment releases alongside Frank. This is the largest group we've had on Shelf Space, which is exciting and delightfully chaotic. They will also be answering your audience questions, so thank you to everyone who submitted an audience question ahead of time. If you would like to submit a question for the future, be sure to sign up for our newsletter and to get on our email list. And if you have a customer service question, please submit those at the link in the video description below. Hello, gang. How's everyone
Well,
doing?
hi, hello.
So, Hi. We like to start off every episode by asking how you all know each other. So, George Lucas gang, how did you come to work with Kino Lorber?
Yeah, so we met through the producer of the doc, Anna Maria Sophilis, who introduced us to you guys. Anna Maria,
I remember her.
yes, yes, yes. Uh, she's around. She's a great producer and development exec and all of these things who we've known for years. We met her on the Chris Gethard show, which
Which
is
is how the three of us also met each other.
yeah, which was a talk show that started on New York Public Access and then eventually went to cable. And Anna Maria was a fan of that show and was hanging around and sort of just became embedded in that scene. Eventually, I suggested that she help out the director by producing this doc when it was all coming together 6 years ago or so. And she suggested you guys because we were looking for a company that would go with our every stupid whim and idea, and Rob was very helpful in making all of that happen.
Pushovers, so
Yeah, and I appreciate it.
perfect marriage.
Yeah,
Yeah. And we kinda had the same situation with Cabin Boy, which, he was he couldn't believe we were gonna give his film the Criterion treatment.
yeah.
So he says, new artwork and all everything else. So it was a release we had a few years ago and did very well for us.
That's a great disc, and I remember years before that the only way you could buy Cabin Boy was in like a pack with 5 other movies. It was always never treated like its own film. So to go from that to like, yeah, very
This incredible
thoughtful.
special edition with and he had PTSD toward that whole
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
he remembers going to the theater to see people keep on walking out every 10 minutes. He literally was buying the theater by himself. So, but we had a really nice screening of it at Nighthawk.
Yeah.
Full.
Oh, that's great.
And he was hanging out in the lobby. I was like, go in there, watch it with your fans.
Yes.
They're gonna laugh at everything. Yeah. He was like, yeah, he writes. Big word.
That's nice.
Yeah, he was very self-deprecating.
Oh yeah, but it was great working with them and Chris Elliott and all that. So.
Yeah. Well, to be mentioned in the same breath as that is a big compliment to us three specifically, I think.
Tell us about, your doc and the Blu-ray release.
The movie's called I'm George Lucas, a Connor Ratliff story. It's a documentary about the making of the George Lucas Talk Show, which is a talk show that Connor, Griffin, and I have been doing for 11 years now. And this chronicles a year in the life of that show. And it's been in the works for the last 6 years or so. It follows the show and also a little bit about Connor and what makes Connor tick. And it's a really fun, nice portrait of what it's like to make a not super famous talk show in New York City and how you make comedy shows in New York City. And it's a fun little slice of life documentary about that and so much more.
Yeah, and the Blu-ray set really contextualizes not just the show, but the whole scene that they came out of, because all the bonus features, including 30 audio commentaries on the disc and 27 more
Yes.
through a digital link and a QR code.
Yes.
Includes like, Chris Gethard, because they came out of the Chris Gethard show and Connor's improv group, the Stepfathers.
Mhm.
So we really get a sense of the whole scene, not just of the show. So it gives you a real sense of community, and it's just a lot of fun. And the most bonus features I've ever included on any reel in my entire life.
Are you on?
I think I'm on 6 or 7.
And you?
I don't remember, 2 or 3.
Yeah, there's one that I recorded as George, but it's not for the documentary. It's for one of the Ewok movies. So you have to literally,
I see.
you have to go watch. You go to like Disney.
License the
Or you just have to go watch Disney Plus.
Oh, okay.
Sync it out, sync it out, and you can get me as George Lucas watching.
And the ones that I'm on are with like guests from the show or the other producers or stuff like that. So it's not. I'm not just doing 7 on my own.
Did you guys get like a real so-called historian?
We did, yeah. We have the guy Brian J. Jones who wrote the George Lucas. What's it? George Lucas: A Life? Is that what it's called?
I think so. Yeah.
I think it's called George Lucas: A Life, which is like the official George, not official,
Not off-road, but like a pretty definitive biography of him.
One of my favorite releases was this movie called Astro Zombies.
Yeah.
Where we actually got
A real Astro Zombie.
he got the director Tid V. Michaels before he passed away to
Yeah.
do a commentary.
Yeah.
We got a historian to do a commentary, and then we got the guys from Mystery Science Theater
Oh, great.
to do.
We have Bill Corbett from Mystery Science Theater.
So we
have ours.
Yeah, the 3 guys, the second part, not who was the guy's names? Forgot, but the guys that had the show.
Riff tracks.
Yeah,
Yes, the riff track stills. Yeah.
So it was like really perfect because you had commentaries, 3 different kind of commentaries,
Sure.
the same disc. So
Well, thus you have 57 different kinds of commentary.
One of the commentaries, and I don't know the guy's name, but I remember when Faulty Towers came out on DVD, and I was excited that there were commentary tracks on it. And there were no commentary tracks from any of the people whose names you reckon. There was no John Cleese commentary or Prunella Scales. Or it was none of the actors, but there was like a BBC director who had done commentary. And I remember putting the first disc in, and the first thing I immediately noticed was you'd hear these ASMR style just mouth noises. Guy had a wet mouth, and it was just a lot of throat clearing and a lot of lip smacking and a lot of just like you could just hear, oh, that's like the tongue hitting against the top of them. It was just like, and the guy had like very slow, like it was just impossible to listen to. And I remember thinking, like, I still like that this has commentary there, but it was also an immediate, like, I can't listen to this.
I feel like we should also say we talk a lot about the commentaries, but there's also, I think, 4 full unseen shows from 2019, which have never been released. They've just been seen in clips in the documentary. There's hours of deleted scenes, extended interviews, stuff like that. And just interviews that we've done about the movie. There's Q&As. I think there's 9 Q&As that we did after screenings for the movies that are available on there. It's a ton of
Is that the slam dance? Yeah.
We did ones with Paul Scheer, Paul Tompkins, David Farrier, Christine Ariel. We did Alan Sepinwall. There's a ton of stuff on there.
a lot of times when I'm working with an older director,
Yeah.
and they want to do they agree to do a commentary. I mean,
Yeah.
we want to put a moderator in
Yes, yeah.
Right.
because I had a situation. I'm not gonna name who it was, like a legendary director. Got the commentary. It was probably he was watching the movie.
Yeah.
And then I like about 20 minutes into the movie, he says something, and then
That's so funny.
so like you seeing that as a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Because you're like, okay,
Where is he talking? Yeah.
this
It is. I remember when DVDs first were coming out, and the first time that I was able to like go into a rental store and see like, oh, which one of these like have commentaries, and I got very excited because like, oh man, Robert Altman seems to do commentaries on all of his movies, and I rented a bunch of Robert Altman movies, thinking like I'm gonna watch all these commentaries this weekend, and it was like the Gingerbread Man. It was like stuff that like he talks on everything. And this might not be true of every Altman commentary because I only listened to a couple of them, but I noticed immediately that it was sort of just more of a description of everything that was happening. It was sort of just like watching the movie with someone who was telling you, well, now here's Shelley Duvall. Of course, she plays Olive Oil, and this is, and it was just like literally like being in the room with the director while he sort of ruins the movie.
Of course, favorite commentary tracks are famously kind of like that and are so funny to have that in his voice, where he's like, "In this movie, I'm a robot," and he just explain it.
If come back wearing no clothes.
I take a gun, I shoot the man in the face.
Yeah, it really is interesting how that there are people who are so good at commentary that you like. I always feel like there's like Terry Gilliam movies that I don't like the movie, but I love watching it with the commentary. You know,
I didn't know this. He's good at the commentary.
I have found that like,
Frank Tarzi is really good.
yeah,
For an older director, yeah, really good. Yeah, he talks about the shot, how it was set up, and how we got lucky here, and all that kind of stuff. like famously, like he talks about how this actor could not drive a car, so we had to figure out a way to shoot the scene.
Yeah, there are people that I always imagine would be great at it. That's amazing that they like Albert Brooks has all those Criterion Collection things, and I think he would be like the gold standard for commentary. There's no commentary tracks.
It's a very weird skill to be good at, and that not everybody has.
Or just people who it's not like he didn't grow up with that. So to him, I feel like it's probably not part of his why would you talk through a movie sort of. Whereas I feel like there are people who like if you grew up like even before I ever heard a commentary track, I remember hearing about them where I'm like these laser discs have a thing where you get
Legendary Bond ones, which were like there for there was so many things said in those that there was lawsuits and all those other things and all which
yeah.
you got to make sure. I mean, we've had situations where we had to delete stuff and say, no, we cannot actually say this. Or even during interviews sometimes. Yeah. I remember there was an interview with an actor and he was like, oh, he was really good. He was a racist, but he's a boo, they hang out. Like,
Nope, sorry guys.
Yeah.
but yeah, there is that. Commentaries are you know, you get lucky that that's like Guillermo del Toro is great at that. He gives us a great detail because he's a storyteller. He talks about everything. He's a big movie fan himself. Those are the guys that usually probably gonna have an easier time doing. I try to do one, and it was from one of my favorite movies of all time, because Ben and Yugby.
Yep.
Then I realized it's 168 minutes long.
Sure. Right.
It's 240. I started recording about an hour. I was like, I think I'm done sending. Yeah. The fuck I'm gonna fill this up.
There's also, I feel like there's also some where they recreate like a good hang where you get like a group of people and it maybe is not 100% like focused on what's happening, but you are like, oh, this is just like being in a living room with a bunch of people who are watching the movie.
It's like a different genre that I also enjoy.
Yeah.
I also like the kind of the roasts. Yeah. Val Kilmer on Spartan. Have you ever listened to that one?
No, I'd love to see it.
Complains about playing it funny. Yeah, it complains nonstop. It's
Yeah, the ones that kind of like the legal department never really listened. Those are the really good ones.
Yeah, like the Limey is obviously one of the like legendary ones because it's sort of like the screenwriter complaining to Soderbergh the whole time about like, well, the reason I wrote this movie was because of this scene and you cut everything out of it. And they're like, yeah, well, it works better without that. And I remember there was a moment where he's like, you put all this emphasis into making sure we knew that there was this party in a house on the hill and they went up one side of the mountain and they drove down the other, but you cut all the monologues that explain why the characters were doing what they were doing. And Soderbergh was just like, yeah, I don't care why the characters are doing what they're doing. I just want to know where they're going and where they are. And it's just like, and it's so funny to hear people sort of litigate some of those things. Because in some cases, like it's such a different experience to sort of remember the movie in an interview versus like the movie's right there. And I like those moments where the person is reminded of something that they never would have brought up. But because they've been made to watch the movie, they're like, oh, when we filmed this, there was this thing happening. And it takes them back to that like story from the day of filming it that otherwise they would not, their memory would not naturally access.
Right.
You know? There was a point in the process of this where I would check in with you every now and then and check in with Patrick and say like, so what's happening with the physical release? And he's like, well, the problem is that second disc. It's like the second wanting to have so many extras that it would really be worth people's while because really for a lot of people who the core audience who's already seen the documentary or bought like the digital release, we wanted it to have something that it wouldn't feel like a double dip if you've already like seen it in a theater or bought like a digital rental or something like that.
We want it to be undeniably like we're buying for people, you know?
Yeah, that like sometimes you'll see that thing where it's like, well, how many times am I gonna watch this? Is it really worth like owning? And it was always that thing of like, we really feel like the nature of our show that we do, that the documentary about it should have so much bonus content that it actually feels overindulgent. Like that's that kind of show.
So they're literally
That's
overspilling.
Yes.
Because we couldn't fit everything on the discs to include the QR code.
When I released Monster Squad, you know, I know that the actor had produced his own documentary, Wolfman Got Nards. Yeah. And we reached out to him and said, listen, we would love to include this as an extra, but He was like, well, I would love to also for you guys to release it. I was like, okay, we could do both. It originally was a third disc on a 4K release, which was incredible because it had so much extras.
Yeah.
And then we actually gave it its own standalone release. So it's cool.
Can you guess what it's titled?
Wolfman's Cotnoir.
Oh, you said it.
Yeah, but I didn't know that. I feel like you've done some other versions of that too, though, where like the 12 Angry Men 4K had the what is it?
The Friedkin version.
The Friedkin version, and
That
now
was done and all. That was a situation where like we had to get permission from GM, and they were like,
Yeah.
it's okay, you could do it.
but that has its own standalone now, right?
That had its own
Oh, and then it was added.
release.
Okay.
There was a whole package of films that we picked up from MGM, which Blu-ray rights were with Criterion.
Yeah.
So we could not include the Blu-ray of 12 Angry Men on Night of the Hunter or some of the films. So we had to get creative. So I was like, you know what? For 12 Angry Men, let's see if we're going to include the William Friedkin version. Sure. With incredible cast, Joshi Scott and Jack Lemmon and all that. And we did for In the Heat of the Night, we put the 2 sequels.
Oh, sure.
You know, the Organization and
They call me Mr. Tibbs. Yeah.
Debs. So some of the other ones we couldn't do anything. We had to just I think we put some bonus Night of the Hunter. We got some really nice interviews and stuff like that. So the Blu-ray disc is just extras. There's there's not actual films.
Yeah. I think part of this for us is we obviously, all three of us love this kind of thing. And one of the things we bonded over is that we're collectors, and we like when we can tell that things were made with care and thoughts. And, the best attempt to make things comprehensive. And
Well, that's the thing that a lot of fans regularly, criticize us for not doing enough extras, but we try.
yeah, we try.
It was like, okay, we announced the film like two years for Sister Sarah. Oh, it'd been great to get a Shirley MacLaine commentary. I'm like, yeah, sure.
Oh,
Sounds
it's
great.
so easy. Yeah.
Which planet these people live on? Shirley MacLaine's going to sit there for 2 hours and talk about this.
She actually did a commentary for our movie, though. So if you check it out,
We haven't announced that yet, right? That's the big reveal of this.
Well, maybe in another life, she'll report about.
Directors, a lot of, it's rare that you're going to get that kind of A-list actor. Robert Redford, we tried to get him for 2 or 3 years of the Condor, because one of his favorite films. Sure. I always talked about that. It's like one of my favorite personal films. We couldn't get him. It's very rare when I almost got Clint Eastwood. Almost. We were very close.
With $1 still
No, we were gonna get him for the Universal collection that we had picked up.
like Iger sanction.
the Higher Sanction and Playlist for Me and Two Meals and High Plains Drifter and all of that. Joe Kidd. But I reached out to him through not him, but his people. I was like, I knew that he probably wouldn't want to talk about his own movie, but I kind of made it, how about you talk about you meeting Don Siegel, working in Universal together, and maybe you could talk about Charlie Varick and Madigan and all those other stuff, because we had all those other films too, And he was interested, and then at a certain point, he got the Cry Macho movie starting. When that started, he was like,
I don't think so. Yeah.
I mean, I think to Connor's point, we are people who like taking dumb bits to the furthest point and past the furthest point. So there's the kind of meta joke of creating more special features for our silly doc than more important movies that have been made.
Yeah.
But the other part of it, as Patrick says, like a lot of this doc came to be through GoFundMe and different fundraising things. A lot of our biggest fans have already seen it, have maybe gotten a digital copy as a bonus. So if we're going to make a physical object, we want that object to be good.
Yeah.
To actually have great audience, because we appreciate those things and we love owning an actual physical thing. And we also want it to differentiate from what any other way you could watch it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also that feeling of making something not feel like it's a double dip, or it's we're asking you to buy
Like
the
an
same thing
afterthought.
again.
Just out of support. Right. We
Yeah.
want it to have its own integrity.
I always liked
I love that.
when Elvis Costello reissued his albums on CD. The first time it was because, well, they sounded bad on the initial CD dumps, and so they had these new versions. And then when it moved from Riker disc to Rhino Records, there was a whole second disc, and it was priced like a single disc. So you didn't feel like you were just buying the same record for the third time. You were essentially getting the record free, and what you were buying was all the extra stuff. And I always love that when particularly when there's a movie that I already own on DVD and it comes out on Blu-ray, the feeling that like my home setup, I don't think I've ever been able to tell the difference between a really good DVD and a Blu-ray and was like, oh, now it looks like I don't have enough of a, and I also don't have that eye for it. So to
So
me,
you don't have a 4K UHD player.
I don't.
It's a little surprising.
Wow.
Yeah.
But when this current machine dies, that will be what I buy next.
Well, I would, disagree with that because I think DVD and Blu-ray there's a big difference. I mean, there's not that much of a difference between 4K and Blu-ray
I just can't see much of a difference on my TV.
on your TV.
Yeah. Like I don't think I have a TV where it's a striking difference.
You've had your DVD or your TV and DVD player for a while.
Yeah.
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 Is it a tube TV or is it?
It's not a tube TV. It's not a tube TV.
Nickelodeon in this, mate. He watches everything via
No, because my younger brother is like he loves the look of how everything looks on. He plays video games, and stuff like that.
Sure.
It's strange how people get like they're like, no, I don't like this.
Yeah. This is good enough.
Yeah,
This is exactly what I want. Yeah.
I agree with you that like the jump from VHS to DVD and DVD to Blu-ray were more seismic,
it was.
but the 4K difference
It's very
almost gets me more excited when it's like, oh, I could see the texture of the fabric in this past one, but now I can see the individual fibers. I start rubbing my hands.
I got to tell you right now that whenever we do like a brand new master from a 4K scan, and it's just a regular HD master, but it's beautifully remastered. If you watch that on a 4K TV on your 4K player, it's going to look amazing.
Yeah.
You're not gonna, and if you pop in the 4K disc right after, you're not gonna see that much of a picture quality.
Yeah.
But there's difference between standard definition, But going back to extras, I know when we did Hack, I was watching something on YouTube. Some guy was talking about how we didn't do any extras. Certainly, with extra mile for Happy Gilmore, and I'm like, we reached out to Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
We reached out to everybody who was involved from the writer. We reached out to Chris McDonald, and the actress. We reached out to Dennis Dugan, their director. All of them turned us down.
Yeah.
So what am I gonna do?
Sure.
Yeah.
Most talent is less accessible than we are. They're very available too.
No, but then in some cases, like when we did Indian Runner, we got Sean Penn, we got Viggo Mortensen, and we got David Morse.
I mean, it's always worth asking. I think that's like the lesson that you learn from this.
And that's
you never go.
You never know.
That's also a passion project. That's also a film
all you got.
that it's like they want to talk about that movie. None of them did that movie for the money.
Right. Sean Penn's first film, directorial debut, talks about the whole Bruce Springsteen thing. And then Viggo Mortensen, who never does these things, he did it because the role meant a lot to him. It kind of made, that's what put him on the map.
Yep.
And sometimes it's also timing, I assume. Whereas you were saying, like, if someone's about to start filming a movie, when you ask them, they're like, I can't put another thing on my plate. If someone hasn't worked in a year, depending on their age, they would have
Because Gilmore 2 was being shot when we...
Right.
Yeah, but we said, how about you guys do something right? You guys record something. All you guys were, hey,
do it on set.
Yeah. And then they're like, no, they're not interested. So
Yeah.
Have you ever been surprised when you're booking the live show?
Mhm.
Did you just ask people that you would don't anticipate getting their
I mean, look, the dream, the thing that I missed the most was doing it during lockdown when no one had anything to do.
everybody?
So it was like, Whoopi, for example, came on, and that was, you knew her producer, and it all just lined up the right way. But it was like, we're all sitting in our living rooms, and it happens.
I almost feel like the more surprising thing sometimes is we'll think of someone and be like, that feels like an easy book.
Yeah.
And you reach out and it's an
It's
absolute.
an immediate no, and we're like, what?
So Baka Mom was one where we were like, she'll have to come on.
They wanted money.
She wanted.
She wanted money.
Yeah, she had like a real rate list and was like, this is my busy season. And it was like 5 years after she had gone viral.
Yes. But no.
No.
Do you guys have your own, white whale? Like, I'm sure you have a wish list of dream guests that you want to get. I mean, you've had so many amazing guests already, but do you guys have your own white whale? Like that one, who you consider your Moby Dick?
Yeah.
I mean, the obvious one is getting the real George Lucas to do the show. And we've come, I think, closer than we have had any reasonable expectation. Like we've gotten things that are not a hard no.
Mm-hmm.
It just hasn't worked out timing wise and
So it's
location wise.
in the works. Sounds like.
Yeah. It's in the works until they give us a no. Happy to.
That's
they,
awesome.
They always tell us to keep asking, which always is like shocking to me. Where I'm
We
like,
get like form letter rejections. We get like very thoughtful, specific, personal.
Yeah.
Not this year, but circle back.
Yeah, we literally had a sketch fest show that we were
up in San Francisco.
up in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And they were like, he's busy that night. And we're like, that's okay, that's great. And they're like, but keep asking. And then the day after the show in the newspaper, we saw that in LA, at his home in LA, he had hosted a $1 million fundraiser for Joe Biden. This is while Biden is president. We're like, this is probably the best excuse that any guest has had for, well, I can't make your show. I'm hosting a fundraiser for the current president in my home.
I'm trying to think of who my New York specific one
What show?
Yeah, I mean Frank Oz would be great. That's a tough one. That's a big ass.
Marshall Lucas would be my number one.
Marshall Lucas would
It's
be
the person I would most like to see
Yeah.
Connor in character as George talked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if we get Marshall Lucas, we never get George. So
That's incredible. Yeah.
that's the trade-off is George's ex-wife.
I've always said Rick Moranis because just as someone that would be a great get as a comedy guest.
Mhm.
And I said, like, there was a point where he was putting out one of his albums of like country songs, and we were like, come on the show and just do your songs, and we'll just talk about music, you know.
But
But
ones like that, like Dan Aykroyd, I feel like is high up on our list. We've always had the internal bit of booking Mark Hamill and not bringing up Star Wars once.
Yeah.
Picking some other subject we know he's a fan of.
yeah, we had this idea of a show called Hamill Barbera that would just be talking about his voice work, specifically on the show Genie, which was the I Dream of Genie animated show that was. He was on a full season of that before episode 4.
It's like one of his absolute first credits.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we could do a whole show where we just talk about that. Never bring up Luke Skywalker.
Classic cartoons. Let's just top Jasper Jaw with Hamill and never bring up Star Wars once.
Yeah.
Is there anyone that you've been like really surprised that you've gotten?
Everyone.
Almost everyone. Yeah.
Every single person.
It's so hard to describe the show to people.
Yeah.
And it's such a leap of faith, and I do think people feel like whether or not I feel like people who don't have an improv background think it sounds difficult, like challenging comedically, and we tell them like, we'll do the hard stuff, we'll make you look good, we adjust to how game you are. And then I think even like improv comedians sometimes worry that it's a show based around Star Wars trivia. And if they don't have a super deep knowledge base, that they won't be able to keep up. So those things are always hard to navigate. And it requires a leap of faith for people to say yes to the show.
Who were you most shocked by that has been on?
I mean, it's hard for me to think. Still, the most shocking one was not even someone that you booked on the show. It was just because of the circumstances of it. We were doing a show a month before The Force Awakens came out. This is when it was a midnight show in the East Village. And a month before The Force Awakens came out, I decided it would be funny. I'd never seen the show Felicity. So I thought, I'll watch all of Felicity. And George will also be watching Felicity as like prep for like, who's this JJ guy? The guy's going to do Star Wars. Let's get a sense of his vibe. So we did this whole show that was like a tribute to Felicity. And George's angle was like, the Felicity guy is taking over Star Wars. And so we made a whole Felicity themed show. We had Janine Garofalo, who was the narrator in the first season, that she's like a pen pal with, her former like high school French teacher. And so we have Janine Garofalo. She was on Felicity. We got Scott Adsit, who was in one episode of Felicity. We hired someone I knew who was a hairstylist to give out Felicity season 2 haircuts to as many audience members as wanted. And then I had been in a play with John Hamm when I was in high school and he was in college. We starred in a production of Ordinary People together. I had not had any contact with John Hamm since I was a senior in high school and he was a senior in college, but I had his email address. And my mom, this was on a Thursday night, my mom emailed me and said, hey, I see that John Hamm's in New York. And it was just like the type of thing. She was like, oh, the guy you were in a play with who's on Mad Men now or whatever. And I did a blind just email late Thursday night that had to explain what the show was. That I was like, hey, I'm the guy who was in the show with you in Ordinary People, long time no see. I do stuff at UCB now. I knew he was like a comedy guy who liked UCB. That would mean something to him. And I'm like, so I do this show. It's at midnight. I pretend to be George Lucas. We're doing an episode that's all about Felicity. Like, it was the craziest email in terms of how much information he was having to process. I'm like, there's no way he'll respond. And like, faster than I get an email response from any of my friends.
I always say he responds faster than my mother does.
Yeah.
Which is true.
He responded and was like, hey, buddy, long time no see. Sure, it sounds like fun. What time's the show? And it was
Amazing.
the fastest yes to the craziest email. Like, it truly, I looked at the email again recently just to see what is it that he had to process. And it truly is like, there's just nothing but red flags.
And then he showed up, it was great.
He showed up and it was so funny.
Yeah.
And also he's like,
Seen Felicity.
he's never been on Felicity. So I'm like, we're doing a show that is themed and you have nothing to do with the theme, but it was just such a flex for the show because we didn't announce them in advance. So the show was sold out, but it was one of those things that I always love it when we have someone who like, I think Patrick's like, I think your best booking ever maybe was Rachel Zegler,
Oh, sure.
because he booked Rachel when West Side Story had not yet come out.
They finished filming.
They finished filming.
Yeah.
And you just like booked her at a point where she
She had posted on Twitter like something about the Star Wars prequels. She had posted like a quote from the Star Wars prequels, and I just responded, Rachel, come on at G Lucas Talk Show. And she was like, oh, what is that? And I was like, DM me. And then immediately we just chatted. She was doing the show like the next week.
She was also like a 19-year-old,
Yeah.
like straight out of high school, shot the Spielberg movie, and then the pandemic happens.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, this movie's in the can.
Yeah.
Now you're stuck at home. It's not coming out for a year. You're not really a public figure yet.
Yeah.
but she had
What better things did she have to do? She wasn't getting other jobs at that moment.
she had an intense fan base already.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just from first online and her online presence, which was also part of what had gotten her the part. But she was also such an immediate like fit for the show. She's got it immediately.
I think she's been on 7 times.
And now she's like obsessed with you guys, right?
Yeah.
We put in, she FaceTimed in from backstage at the Academy Awards. She presented a Cabin Boy,
Yeah.
and then backstage as she's in the like hallway with the giant statuettes behind her.
Patrick's highest professional moment in terms of my regard of you and your lowest are both connected, because the highest is that you were prescient about like keeping an eye out for like who would be an interesting guest and getting in on the ground floor, because we're also like, I feel like a connection for Rachel to like normal life.
Sure.
You know, because we're a pre
stardom. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's also then the night when we were doing the Oscars live stream, and I was like, send Rachel the live stream link. And she's like, she's at the Oscars. I'm not going to bother her at the Oscars. I was like, and I was in character as George. So I said to Patrick, I'm not asking. And you sense, and with the speed of a John Hamm email response,
Yeah.
like you like sent it and you were like, oh, this is embarrassing that I'm having to like, hey, Rachel, here's the live stream link. And then you were like, oh, like instant like shame and embarrassment. That's like, it worked.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just been, I mean, I think that our main goal with the show from the beginning was always that this is a show that's fun for people to do.
Yeah.
And that like, because there's no money in the George Lucas Talk Show, we couldn't do a show like this. If it ever got to a professional level, I think that would be the point where higher powers would say, let's shut this down.
Yeah.
I think that it's always just been this fun thing to do that is an escape from like a real talk show is a professional obligation. It's a thing that you have to like prepare for in a different way and think of in a different way. And our show is not that. Our show is like a fun time.
Because you're always answering the same question.
Yeah.
This tour. It's like being on the jump message you wouldn't even conceive of ever having to answer.
And I think even more so than something like SNL, where people come on that show and they're like, hey, here's like stuff I don't get to usually show. I'd love to do voices, or I never get to sing or whatever. And the show is written and planned around that, because our show is not planned at all.
Mhm.
People come on and discover things where they're like, it's fun to do that, and I've never done that before. And that happened in the moment.
Yeah.
Like one of our running gags is that we always say, because George is actively trying to destroy any pre-McClunky version of Star Wars, any whatever the latest special edition.
VHS, Laserdisc.
And so we've always said, anyone who brings a pre-special edition version of a pre-current special edition version of any Star Wars movie, George will destroy it on stage. And it was just a bit that is both our the audiences are 50-50 split. The audience either loves it or absolutely cries out in pain watching it happen. Because I'll just take a hammer. I'll just take a hammer and Meredith Vieira was on the show. And she's literally on stage at UCB with us, just like digging her spiked heel into like an early VHS version of Empire Strikes Back.
Wow.
That's amazing. Sorry, I should have started with this, but for the, shelf space viewers who are not familiar with your show,
Good
can
idea.
you
Hey, this is a
give
great
the
idea.
the spiel that you would give to a potential guest? Like, how would you pitch the show to them?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's a normal talk show that happens to be hosted by George Lucas. Connor,
And George Lucas is played by Connor.
yes, George Lucas is played by comedian Connor Ratliff. The sidekick is Watto from the Star Wars prequels, played by Griffin. And it's just, we treat it as if you were going on Jimmy Fallon or James Corden, except Jimmy Fallon and James Corden is a man playing an 80-year-old retired filmmaker. And that's kind of it. Like, there's not much else to it. I say you don't need to know much about Star Wars. You just go on and be yourself and sort of if you let the things wash over you, you will have a better time rather than trying to either get on the level or figure out how to get to the level before we get to you. You know what I mean?
The thing I always try to say to guests if I sense that they're a little nervous backstage is you don't have to pretend that your relationship to this is any different than what it is in reality. If you don't care about Star Wars, don't pretend you like it. If you love it, don't try to pretend you're not a super fan. If you like certain things and are angry about other things, and especially our favorite thing is anytime we have anyone on who has any experience with George,
With real George.
with real George Lucas, whether it's a one-off meeting or they worked with him at some point, I go, Connor's never going to be happier than if you throw a story to him that is real, that you know every detail of, and he has to yes and catch up. I feel like that's when you get the most excited.
It's a different game because usually if we have someone on, I like it when there's someone who has no connection at all and doesn't even have like an interest, because then the game is for George to find a way of making it about George and Star Wars. Like saying to like Ira Glass, like, you and I are the same basically. And Ira Glass is like, what? I'm like, we both produced movies. We both worked in public radio. And he's like, when have you worked in public radio? I'm like, oh, remember the NPR public radio audio versions of New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back that raised a lot of money for public. And Ira Glass is and me like, okay, you're right, George, we're the same. But when there's someone like, we had Amy Irving on who was married to Steven Spielberg, and so would go on couples vacations when George was married to Marsha Lucas and Steven was married to Amy.
And before the show was incredibly nervous and specifically asked, can I go to dinner with you guys beforehand so I feel comfortable, because I don't do this kind of comedy and I don't do improv and this and that, and had this real line of like, this is infringing on my personal life and history and people I'm close to.
And it's all very fair.
Yeah, we were like, we're not going to pull anything out of you. We're not going to push you in a corner, anything you don't want to say. And there's like, we can make this the easiest version of the show. We go off of you.
Yeah, we can just talk about your new album.
Right.
Like, we don't have to make this personal.
Yeah.
And then she very quickly locked in. As the show started, she like got a sense of like, oh, I see what this is.
Within like 90 seconds.
Yeah, it was very fast.
And before we knew it, she's like telling a very personal story about being on an airplane and George Lucas, when he was dating Linda Ronstadt, like making out in the back of the plane with Linda Ronstadt while they're flying to Hawaii.
As she put it, sucking face for hours.
Yeah.
Now suddenly it's like the ultimate gift for Connor, that it's like, here's a real story from someone who knows. And now part of the character backstory of George Lucas is famously loves kissing, the thing that has never been publicly known before, and that he can always build on.
Yeah.
And then you kissed her.
She kissed me.
She kissed you.
She kissed George.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's stuff like that where it's just creating a sense of fun. Like, if the guests are having fun, then the audience is also having fun. It's just like an immediate, it's a one-to-one thing. If the guests are not having fun, then we're not doing our job right, and then the audience won't like it. Unless I think there's only been one instance we can think of where there was a guest who was so hostile to the show because he thought it would be funny to constantly deny that I was George Lucas.
It's the only wrong move I contend you can really truly make in the show that cannot be salvage.
It was someone who had worked. It was we were in London. It was a British actor. He had worked in multiple Star Wars movies, and I'm engaging with him as George, and he kept saying things like, "But you're not George Lucas. You're an actor pretending to be George Lucas." And he was so delighted with himself, and you could tell he thought this was the funniest thing to do.
Yeah.
And the audience, who had all paid money to come see this show,
They knew what show they were shooting.
they weren't like, "Oh, good, a fraud is being exposed."
Finally, we've been waiting.
And it's literally yelling fake news, and they were booing. It was incredible how off the rails it went.
It's still not a bad show. It's just not the show that we prefer to do.
Yeah.
It should be said also that you're not like punching down at George Lucas. You're coming to it as a fan.
I couldn't punch down. He's too far up.
That's too far. He's a deity.
Yeah, but yeah, years ago we released Metropolis theatrically, did really well, and there was a restoration, all that. New York Film Critics Award. I'm there at the party after, and my boss who passed away, my old boss Donald Krim, received the award, and George Lucas gave him the award.
Oh, wow.
George Lucas talked about how important Metropolis was to him, and that there wouldn't be no Star Wars or any of the Forbidden Planet, any of those films without Metropolis, and then that was like, I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Lucas is here. But yeah, I was like, I also saw it, Richard Gere, and other famous people there. But the fact that my boss actually went on stage and picked up an award and got it from George Lucas himself, that was pretty cool.
The founder of Kino International, that started in the late 70s.
Yeah, I mean, Kino International started in 77, 78, and then 2009, Lorber Films, Richard Lorber and Kino became Kino Lorber. So
Yeah.
I mean, he's a big physical media guy. George is too. Like the versions, when Star Wars came out on DVD, that was like a big thing. And when it came out on Blu-ray, they put out so many bonus stuff on there. Like that's always been a part of his whole thing too, is like these movies have been released so many times.
I was the head buyer for Kim's Video for
Yeah.
So I remember all the special editions coming out, like the laser discs and then people complaining that something was changed.
I was going to say, he's also like the single most controversial figure in this world, and how much he tries to rewrite the films as this is now.
He's not the only one. He's not the only one. He's the thing that most filmmakers, especially aging ones from the great ones from the 70s, Friedkin has done that. Michael Mann has done that.
He's on Wonder Wire recently. Storaro has done that.
Storaro has done that. So I mean, this is an even as crazy one where John Badham changed, took the color out of Dracula because his original intention was to release black as a black and white film, but they were out. So when it got released on Blu-ray, finally it was black and white, and then of course when Schaub re-released it, they went back and included both.
Sure.
Both versions.
George just has so much control that he gets to like pull the past out of circulation in a more severe way than sometimes these other guys can. He's not alone in that.
Yeah. And also, like, there are filmmakers who most people aren't aware that like, oh, the version of 7 that you're seeing that David Fincher, like, it's an obscure topic that David Fincher keeps sort of changing the color temperature of the movie as it with each new version of it. That's not a mainstream conversation, whereas people who are not normally versed in these kinds of things, they know that George Lucas is changing stuff. It's not like subtle. It's like there's a new scene.
Yeah.
A character that previously didn't look like they could move is now like sliding around.
Oh, yeah. That's what is noticeable. It was the kind of things that like what Friedkin would change the colors to a point where it's really noticeable. Yeah, same thing with Michael Mann with the Thief. He also sped up some scenes that he was like, I no longer wanted this in slow motion.
Yeah.
The Criterion just
Michael Mann cut my favorite line from Heat.
Yeah.
That when in the She's Got a Great Ass scene with Al Pacino and Hank Azaria, he says one of the lines, and then he says, ferocious, aren't I? And he cut the ferocious, aren't I? It's not in the definitive versions of Heat. And it's such a good little line.
It's always in my head, always there when I'm...
There was a point where I was watching, I was like, did I imagine that? Yeah. And then I looked it up, and I'm like, nope, he cut it.
This is insanely the second time we've talked about this today.
Yeah. But I didn't bring on Michael Mann.
Now that they added Friedkin added the gunshot at the end of Sorcerer, that's something that, it was pretty obvious that he was not.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't need a gun. Yeah, need the gun go off.
They should add a part where he goes, "Ow, I've been shot." It's and it's a kill shot.
And also, the guy saying McClunky right before he fires the gun.
And another guy goes, "He's right. This guy's dead. He got shot to death." I'm gonna release a cut of Sorcerer that ends with that extra thing. Like, now people will really know what happened inside that building.
If I was actually talking to George Lucas, I would say, why the hell did she come back and be all this horrible story?
What would George tell you?
The Phantom Menace. I would swear upon to the morning and saw that one.
This is like, it's fun when we have a guest on the show who feels that way and says backstage, "Am I allowed to go off?" And there's almost something therapeutic. Of they get to speak.
Yeah, like, what's your main complaint that you have?
Everything almost about that whole trilogy is horrible.
Which trilogy?
The Phantom Menace, the 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's this one. The 3 episodes.
Yeah, you didn't like? It's too scary.
No, it's horrible.
Yeah, I know. Well,
Jar Jar Binks. What was that?
Senator Banks. Well, I mean, it's supposed to be horrible. Like Darth Vader does a lot of terrible things.
Fascism is horrible.
The only redeeming things about Phantom Menace is the score by John Williams.
Great score.
And Darth Maul, which gets killed too quickly. Like you wanna see more of him.
All right, but that's what happened. He died. I'm sorry that you were sad that he died, but you should feel sad. Yeah. I think one of the other things I am kind of optimistic that I feel like there being a copy of the documentary on physical media. I think it makes it somehow feel more likely that real George Lucas might watch it. Sure. Like that there's a world where at least a copy gets handed to him and he's like, "What's this?" Whereas up to now, it's a thing that's existed in theatrical spaces or on internet links, live streaming, or on YouTube. It's all things that are kind of ephemeral. You can kind of avoid.
Easier to ignore a private Vimeo link sent to an inbox.
Yes. Whereas I feel like there's a point where there could be just a pile and it's like, "What's that one?" Like, "Oh, that's
somebody in his office who's sympathetic to your show or enjoys your show. That is very possible.
And it's also explains it in a way that he starts watching it. It's like, "Oh, this guy imitates you and does a show about it." I mean, I know there's an awareness. I don't know how aware he is of the show, but I know that historically, he's always one of my favorite stories about George Lucas is that when Mad Magazine did like a parody of Empire Strikes Back, they got like a cease and desist notice from Lucas's lawyers saying like, "You have to pull these issues. It's not, you can't do this." And then they responded by sending a copy of a letter that George had already sent to Mad Magazine saying, "I love this artwork and this parody. Can I buy the originals? They should be in a museum." Like he was so like into the.
Will they be in the museum of their art?
I think there's certainly a non-zero chance that there. I think there will definitely be some Mort Drucker in that museum at some point, and it would not surprise me if it was a Star Wars related thing.
I think we should say this. If you guys want to send a copy to his office, I don't think we would be mad.
Not at all.
So
I'll get in that area.
I'll go further than that. I'll say
just city guy.
I'll say we'd be happy.
yeah, all right.
Oh,
yeah, I think we'd be happy.
It's not an absence of anger.
And
it's an addition of joy.
And let's just put it out there.
Okay.
If George or anyone in his circle ever wants to add a commentary to the digital online treasure chest, can we keep that little door open?
Absolutely.
For George, I sent a box of Shazam to Charles Barkley because I was hoping he would bring it out and make fun of him during the show. Yeah, but it's very but we sent a box of Shazam to Charles Barkley. So
we also just like promoting George stuff because like we spent the past year. George's wife Melody put out a children's book called Priceless Facts About Money, and the second that I found out it existed, I'm like, this is a runner in the show that will probably never end. We literally have people in the audience who hold up that they bought copies of the book. And it's just like every new thing we learn about George, especially if it's not a Star Wars thing, like the museum that he's opening in LA, the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art, we've been doing stuff about the show since the stuff on the show about the museum almost since the show began, because he spent so long. That was the thing. He had retired and he was trying to start his museum. He tried it in Chicago. He tried it in San Francisco. And it's been a decade of trying to make this museum happen. And we've been doing bits about it for so long that there are people who are, now that the museum is like built and it's about to be opened, there are people in this world who have discovered the museum is real after believing it was just a bit we were doing on the show, where they literally are driving in LA and they're like, oh my God, what's that? And I thought that was the thing that they made up. Just because like we were doing bits about this in 2015 that were about like, well, I got to get my museum open. I got which we sort of treat his museum as if it's like normal people have like a storage locker where they keep their old Flash Gordon posters or something. And he's like, I got to put these somewhere, you know?
Well, before we get to audience questions, I would love to know more about your personal collections. You all collect physical media. Can you tell us like how long you've been collecting? What are your most prized titles in your collection? You know, how you organize, all that good stuff.
You go first. Yeah. I mean, I have a wall that looks a lot like this in my apartment, which is great. I started DVDs probably in high school, like, and then got a Blu-ray player because I wanted to watch the movie Prometheus again, but didn't want to watch it on a DVD. I said the only way I'm going to rewatch this is on a Blu-ray. So I bought a Blu-ray player for that, and it's become a real problem. Just because whenever I have to move or anything, the thing that takes the longest to move is my wall of Blu-rays that takes over my whole apartment at this point. But yeah, probably have a few hundred, and it's I mean, I love it, and I should cut down on how many I buy, but it's just an excuse for me to buy a new shelving unit and then just have to figure that out from there. So it's a big part of my life though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm older than both of you, so I probably the first things I remember buying were all like clamshell VHS. They were like Disney and Warner Brothers cartoons. I remember being able to own a few things like that, and even also the cheap VHS they used to get at Walmart when I was a kid, and I didn't have a lot of pocket money. There were all those cartoons that had gone out of copyright, and so there'd be like a handful of Warner Brothers things, and they'd be really bad quality, and they'd
be like 50 cartoon classics.
Yeah, they'd be recorded in like the 6-hour format, so it was really, really. But then you just have it, and it was something you'd have control over watching, and now I'm at the point where yeah, I just have too many like stacks and piles of things, and there is that thing of when I realize that I've owned a disc for such a long time and I haven't revisited it, that I start questioning like, what is it about owning it? What is it? What am I getting from it? And what I realize for some of it is when a thing means enough to me that I feel like I should own it. It shouldn't be just something that I rent, even though there are plenty of things that I own that I could have just rented once, watched it, and kept it. But it means something to have it. I also realize that there's a lot of denial of death in what if I own something and I haven't watched it yet. It sort of gives me the feeling of like I have time to watch it. And the more things that I own that I feel like I still have time to watch, it's a way of me physically manifesting like, well, I'm going to live at least this long because I have to watch my remaining movies. Now, obviously, there are going to be things I don't get around to.
I don't want to think about that.
But I have to, because
Wow.
I have to have a healthy relationship to my physical media collection. To realize that some of it is an act of denial, and some of it is an act of identity, and some of it is just cherishing something so much that you're like, I like this movie exists, I want it. You know, I got the email that my Radioland Murders and my Two Jakes are both processing and getting ready to ship to me. And I don't know, let's be honest, I'm definitely going to watch the special features on Radioland Murders. I don't know how many more viewings of Radio.
Have you seen it?
Twice.
Okay.
I don't know how many more viewings of Radioland Murders I have in me. Probably not that many. Could easily be a rental.
But you're so happy that you're able to own it in this
The
format.
fact that someone else would put Radioland Murders out in a special
I
edition.
mean, you've had the poster up.
We put the poster up
Your
at the first show I ever did. Before Griffin was involved in the show, when Patrick was audience member who was then recruited to do the warm-up for the first show.
I own the Drew Struzan original Radioland Murders
R.I.P.
art. I know, today's the day.
Okay, so that.
But I have that framed on my wall. So I am very excited for this movie to come out.
But it's not a question of how many more viewings I'm going to have of the whole movie. A lot of times it is like, if you're going to put it out, I'm going to vote with my dollars to say, good job putting this out. And thank you for putting it out. And it's the same with Two Jakes. I love the Two Jakes. I think it's a really underrated sequel. I don't know how many more If I'm really being honest, I don't know how many more times I'm going to watch that.
Did you see it once or more?
More than once.
And which I remember that perfectly because that was around the same time Godfather Part 3 came out. Texas was okay.
Yeah.
Sequels to like classics.
Yeah.
All there at the same time. And that was the best one. I mean, Two Jakes was the best.
Those like 70s Paramount films getting revisited in the 90s.
It was the best one. I also find that The Two Jakes is a movie that if you haven't just watched Chinatown, The Two Jakes is kind of confusing. Like you need to watch Chinatown and then watch Two Jakes. You have like a 72-hour clock is ticking. And that if you get to hour 73, you're like, nope, too late. You gotta watch Chinatown again because it's so dependent on the first one.
Should include a pocket watch with the Blu-ray.
With the toothpicks.
Absolutely, it's just like absolutely.
The thing is that me also being kind of one of the older people, I started collecting VHS tapes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But my whole rule now is that if I have something on my shelf and I haven't watched it in 5 years,
You get it out of there?
I get it out.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm so jealous of you.
I don't know the promise of someday, especially if it's included in like a box set or it's like a director that I want to be completist about. I'll blind buy some things of I'm into the whole experiment of this person or this series.
Right. I realize more and more that my all-time favorite films are getting smaller.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that mean the most to me. The ones that I, if I was when I had cable, I would watch a scene from it. And him, I mean, there was one time I was watching this horrible with commercials. I was watching In the Heat of the Night with commercials. And I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah. But sometimes that's the thing.
Every 5 minutes there was a commercial.
My favorite experience of watching, because back before DVD, whenever there would occasionally be a movie on TV that was letterboxed, and I didn't have a Laserdisc player, but I knew about letterbox, and I knew that like we're watching these films the wrong way, and so there were movies that every now and then I would catch your attention when you're flipping channels because you'd be like, "What's this? Oh, they really care about the movie." And it was, I think TNT was showing 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it was widescreen letterbox. I thought, oh, they really care about the movie. And I was watching it, and it's the whole Dawn of Man, and he's hitting the bone he throws the bone up in the air, and it flips and it flips and it flips, and they cut to a commercial. I'm like, it is the most famous edit in movie history,
And they made it.
and
It's even more important.
and it's just like, and now we're from a and we cut back. A lot of time has passed, and now it's just like
It's horrible. The other thing was this, when you watch the film, it was letterbox. The credits were letterbox, and the film started.
oh, and then it goes like it does that little like. Even sometimes it'd be like the first scene if there's still some more like credits that are sort of rolling under it, and you're just waiting and you're like, oh, they're really gonna show it, and then it goes. It was just like the move that you see the image quality degrade as it like squeezes to fit in your square TV.
Go ahead.
No, I just remember in the mid 2000s, Comedy Central started playing Rushmore and Royal Tenenbaums in their rotation. And like the Wes Anderson compositions are so specific and thoughtful that there would be certain shots where they knew they couldn't crop it. So they'd actually just squeeze it. So the character will all be like this because they were like, if we throw out any part of the image, the thing doesn't make
The
sense.
early days, I remember in the 80s when I watched the widescreen film on TV, all the credits were like squeezed. All the names.
Yeah.
You would watch something like The Wild Bunch, and the William Volder's name will be like this. And, it was crazy how they did that. But I know the first film I saw letterboxed on like pay cable was, I think it was on Showtime, was Manhattan. Because Woody Allen wouldn't let it be screened without, and they didn't know what to do with the black bars, so they put these like gold and green kind of like frames on each side. It was horrible. I was like, what is this shit at the bottom? Like they were like, oh, we cannot leave a black screen.
Yeah.
And I remember at Kim's when I started carrying widescreen films on VHS, and other people would come in and return tapes. So like I bought 32-inch TV, not to like watch everything so small. Like, I don't know, like it was like, oh, they clearly said that. So we started putting signs everywhere. That this is the way this is gonna look. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was this really great little article about how The Last Supper. This is what you see, and then why would you watch it on TV? You lose like 5 of the disciples.
Yeah, it's like the rounds of the meal. A couple horses are gone.
Griffin, what's your physical media relationship?
Out of control. Yes. Unhealthy, comprehensive. I mean, you asking what the grails in our collections are, the most important items. I was like struggling to think of it. What have become a big part of my relationship now is I do a podcast with David Sims called Blank Check, where we pick a director and go through their whole filmography. And so anytime we commit to a new director, I immediately go, great, time to start buying discs. Which ones do I already have? I want every movie we're covering in some physical format. And part of it's like, I want the sort of object permanence of us having covered it and be able to look at a wall and be like, this was this year of my life where we covered these 4 directors.
Right.
And part of it is like, I'd ideally like to watch it on a physical format and not deal with streaming, buffering, lesser qualities and whatever. But so there'll be this game of like, okay, now director committed, go through all their films. What's the best version of each movie? Which discs are out of print? And then you start to go into weird things where some of the discs I covet the most are movies that are pretty inessential and that I don't even really like. But we'll go like, oh, we're doing Danny Boyle. Okay, A Life Less Ordinary has only ever been released in Japan 15 years ago. You know, The Beach has only ever been released in Spain. And some of those discs are very odd, but I like the kind of mishmash of if there's any way to get a physical representation of each one, it's the kaleidoscope of that. Yeah.
How do you keep
Almost
track
like a
of
challenge.
Sean, how do you keep track? You have a spreadsheet? I mean, how do you know you haven't like bought something already? Like, do you have a
I mean, sometimes you make the mistake and you rebuy the thing. Some of it's spreadsheeting. I use Blu-ray.com as like a major resource.
Shout out Blu-ray.com.
Love Blu-ray.
We love Blu-ray.com.
But yeah, there's like
Frank is always up in the forums there.
No, you know, we have the, you know, we used to have a person there that used to go there and cause a lot of problems. That doesn't stuff. Yeah.
now you're trying to play the law
Gotta crack the
down.
whip.
Yeah. But like
We got to get a review on Blu-ray.com. How do we make that happen?
we have a listing on the site.
Do we? Oh, okay.
The thing you have to, when it comes to, what about like if you do an older director, like some of the films are not even available. What about
Yeah. No, I mean, some of them, there's just straight up nothing we can do.
Yeah, so you have to skip those films.
I'll say the oldest director we've done up until this point is Buster Keaton, which thankfully you folks have been very comprehensive.
Yeah, but even his,
Not every.
a lot of stuff is
Yeah, but we focused on the features and that made it easier. And the features he directed or co-directed primarily.
right.
But there is stuff that like only exists in a private Google Drive we have, where we've had a connection of, you know, a network of people passing files around for certain things that are just not what we have.
You know, the thing is that there's also films that he did not direct, but he was. A lot of people think technically he was on the.
Deadwood Sedgwick movies.
So the crazy thing is, I remember watching the extras for the Deadpool, and that was supposed to be directed by I'm forgetting who, but maybe Buddy Van Born.
Yeah.
And then when you're watching the extras, you hear Canisius say "cut," and I'm like, "Nah." So he used to do that. He did that when you took
All the decades of Clint, and there's like 3 guys that he would hire.
Hyrule. He did that with him with Tightrope. Yeah. The funny thing is that we interviewed the actor that was in that did the follow-up movie for Tuggle was in. This movie is pretty much impossible to find right now because it only got released on VHS. I think it's called Out of Bounds of Out of Time. It's with Anthony Michael Hall, and they were like, Tuggle didn't know how to direct. He was like on the set, and he actually admitted to it, be like, yeah, he says he sort of directed Title, but I just got credit for it.
Yeah.
And there is always those kind of situations where it's rumored somebody else has directed it.
Yeah, we make the calls on things like that of like what feels essential to include or like do we release it as a separate thing. But I mean, Eastwood had the whole like doesn't the DGA change their rules around Outlaw Josie Wales, right? That he fired the director and took over as the director, and then I think
Phil Kaufman he fired.
they rewrote the rules after that, which is why he starts working with people who are the director but will never trump him in an argument.
Right.
Because they changed it so that a star can't take over the direction of a movie in progress.
Well, the first time that happened was the first time it happened was Brando and Jax. He fired Kubrick. Also. And then
I feel like Tom Cruise does that a lot.
Kirk Douglas fired Anthony Mann and hired Kubrick to do Spartacus as a favor because Kubrick kind of owed him a favor for Past the Glory.
Yeah.
And so he was like, "Listen, I'm here to collect. I want you to come direct this movie." Because Spartacus is not a Stanley Kubrick project. It's just something he did. But yeah. So who has the biggest collection between you? You probably have the biggest one.
I don't know, not necessarily. It's probably you,
It might be. I don't know.
one of us, I think, right? One of the three of us.
And it's some
Over 1,000. Over 1,000.
I would maybe be close.
yeah.
I'd probably be close to 1,000.
It's high hundreds at least.
Yeah.
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 I have bands that I'm cycling things out also. I'm constantly like, and especially upgrading editions and things like that. Yeah.
And after we leave the Kino closet today, it'll definitely be over 1,000.
Yeah.
You get a new shelf.
That's a promise. We're taking some shelves with us too.
We are coming up on the hour, so I just want to make sure we get a few audience questions in. So why don't we switch gears? This first question is for the George Lucas team. It's from a Jason T. George Lucas team. Did coming from improv and podcasting backgrounds influence your decision to have a whopping 30 commentary tracks on your release, on your Blu-ray release?
I mean, that's half your question.
Look, there's 30 on the physical release. There are more on the digital release. I think we have 57 total. As of right now, we recorded one today.
But that was very much your project.
That was my
Your
project.
stated goal.
I wanted to make this a record-breaking thing, and immediately when we came up with the idea, I said I want to have the most audio commentaries that have ever been on a movie before, and the most we could
What
find.
was the record before that?
The most we could find, yeah.
There's not nobody comes close to that.
Yeah, nobody. And that was on purpose. That was on purpose. The most I could find was for a movie called Teddy Bomb, which had 10.
Wow. And I remember saying to you when you told me that, I remember saying, well, you need at least 20.
Yeah.
Because you can't, if the record is 10,
Yeah.
if you do 11, that's just asking for someone to come across and do 12.
Yeah.
The record is a whole.
You gotta
So
make
it's
it
like, I
hard
had to
for
ask
it
how
to
many
be-
audio
yeah.
tracks can you fit on a Blu-ray before. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
It hadn't been like a possibility that
Yeah.
it'd be.
So I thought if you double the record, that is like sending a message where you're like, don't even try. Like if you're gonna like, don't even try to come.
It's bidding on something on eBay. You don't bid $1.
No. You go up. Yeah.
And then there was a point. Then of course there was that point where I was like, "What's the progress?" And you were like, "I don't know if we've got to get somebody who will agree to the second disc.
Yes.
We'll agree to putting some of these extras, etc." But then there was a point where I realized you had gone way past the number that would fit.
A lot of this stuff.
Quintupled the record.
Yes. I was not telling Connor a lot of this stuff. It hit a point where I said, I have 100 hours of stuff. It's all going to be in there in some form between digital and the actual disc. Yeah. And it worked out exactly the way I wanted it to. And we're waiting on, I've submitted it to Guinness. I'm waiting on Guinness to get back to me.
Fingers crossed.
I
That's
think,
amazing.
I think as far as indirectly, I'd say the show and the way the show has always been like this expanding thing definitely comes from an improv place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this release is in the spirit of the show in the sense that we've like when we first started doing live streams, when the pandemic hit and it shut down our monthly live show, we said, oh, well, for Star Wars Day, the pitch was we'll watch all the Star Wars movies and we'll do a charity live stream. And I insisted that if we were going to watch all the Star Wars movies, we had to include the Ewok movies
And the holiday special.
and the holiday special.
The quote from Connor was, if we don't do the Ewok movies, it's not worth doing it all.
And I think that is very much in the spirit of the show, which is like, if we're going to do it, let's really do it.
Too much.
Yeah.
Did you start
All
with
or
Phantom
nothing.
Menace or with?
Yes, because it was George would have it be.
It went through narrative order.
It was chronological, which is for I think any of us, we would all consider the wrong storytelling order.
True. I would say chronological.
Well, how did the special effects of the sun kind of
It was I mean,
upgraded in the earlier movie?
but you also, we have to remember, we're doing this without sleep. So by the time we're getting to the original movies, we are so punch drunk.
But it's also I bet
We're on hour 7.
Well, at least that's better because if you got to those horrible movies,
Sure.
well, I think even the Ewok movies aren't even though they came out between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. I think at least one of them takes place like between Empire and Jedi.
Yeah.
And in terms of the continuity of Star Wars, the Ewoks in the first Ewok movie speak Ewokese. And by the second movie, which just came out a year later, they all speak English. And so it's really crazy to watch, to have that be the order that you're watching the Star Wars movies, where there's literally a break between you watch the prequels, then you watch one original Star Wars movie, then you watch the holiday special, then you watch Empire Strikes Back, then you watch an Ewok movie. And you're also like, we started at midnight. So it was.
So the answer is yes.
Yes.
We took it to the logical conclusion, which was let's blow this thing up as much as we can blow it.
I don't think there's a single legitimate fan of the George Lucas talk show who looks at the number of extras on this and is like, that's not like them.
Yeah.
No, it's very on brand. Another question for you guys from Don Ho. I hope you understand what this means. When will Lucas adapt 10 Years Slippin' with the Bloods into a space opera? I think he means it's a documentary called Slippin' 10 Years with the Bloods, like the Bloods and the Crips Bloods.
Oh yeah, I remember that. We released that.
And what's the question about it? When will
When
George
will
Lucas
Lucas
adapt it?
adapt Slippin' into a space opera?
You really hoped that we would understand that, and guess what?
No.
Yeah.
Like, all right, so Slippin' was a documentary that we had released that was about the Bloods.
Sure.
Yeah, the Crips and Bloods.
Yeah.
It was a documentary about the Bloods. So I guess somebody felt like they needed to ask that question.
And so is the question whether real George Lucas will do this or our version of George Lucas will do this? Because I think in either case, the answer is sooner than you think.
We'll start talking about the Bloods on the show. I think that's fine, right?
I don't think it's a Blues Clues, mate. I don't think that's a thing we should say.
You don't want to start Crips showing it.
Yeah, we're not trying to both of
It would not be out of character given the fact that the original movies were about Vietnam, and it wouldn't like if George Lucas was making space operas, I think this is an area that would maybe be of interest to him. Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm hoping this actually happens then. So this is a question you probably will understand better. A question from Logan for all of you guys. What is your favorite non-Star Wars George Lucas movie?
The ones that I guess he's directed.
That he directed.
Yeah, any sort of project. It's a limited bucket if it's directed.
I guess I would say THX.
Yeah.
That's American Graffiti.
I really adore American Graffiti, but there's stuff he produced that I mean, what's it called?
Greater.
Twice Upon a Time.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it.
Yeah, and Raiders in Last Crusade and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'd say everyone else uses it. Yeah, directed. So
Yeah.
I have to be Graffiti.
I'm also a big fan of More American Graffiti, which I think is a really underrated sequel. It's interesting structurally because it takes place over multiple different New Year's Eves. It also like uses different aspect ratios. Like it's really like it's not a lazy sequel. And I think if I could, he didn't direct it. He did second unit on it.
Right.
Sort of counts. Second unit.
But it didn't. It also came out, and it compared to how Star Wars was going, it was just like, oh, no one cared about this.
Yeah.
I do feel like I wish that they had made more of them, because I think if they had kept making movies with those actors, that you would have ended up with something akin to like Boyhood. You would have had
7 of.
you could you could have made a movie that would have been like, well, this is about these characters in the 70s, and then eventually you would have had like Ron Howard and Cindy Williams, like, well, where did they end up in the 80s? Like, I think it would have been, I think it's, they committed so hard in that second one to doing something that wasn't just a remake of the first one. And because people didn't go wild for it, it just went away.
I thought it was kind of depressing.
It is kind of depressing.
So is life.
Yeah, but I know a lot, but I don't want to, American Graffiti is kind of like, I don't want it's just like, there's,
You thought the original was depressing or the second?
oh, the original has, there's moments where, there's, of course, this sadness of,
Yeah.
The ending's pretty.
the ending and all that.
Yeah.
Although one of the Vietnam deaths gets undone in the second movie.
It comes back to
Because he fakes his death in Vietnam and goes into Vietnam and starts a new life. I would have loved to have seen a third movie with that.
But I felt more American Graffiti was kind of, I don't know. It just didn't have the look, the feel.
Sure.
The original was like such a good looking film.
Yeah.
But
Maybe AGC is a new transfer and a new edition with lots of bonus features.
We will do a commentary for More American Graffiti if you guys put it up.
I have a great poster that we use on the live streams that's for More American Graffiti, and it has one of the worst taglines because it's basically just like, it's basically sort of blaming the audience. It's sort of like, hey, if you like the first one, wouldn't you like another one? It's just for left. And the poster itself also has like a typo that they had to like paste over. They had to do like a run of things. So you're just like, oh, no money is going into this. Like, yeah.
It is one of those things that when we talk to people about George Lucas, when they come on the show, people like don't do the math of the guy only ever directed 6 feature films and 4 of them are Star Wars. There are a lot of things that people think he directed, including Empire and Jedi, and things that he produced where his name was more prominent, like
Or he's
how they did Varrock or Radioland or Red Tails.
But there's a good example. Yeah, Empire and Jedi, I think he kind of co-directed. There's no doubt he just didn't want all the responsibilities of the director.
But I think the same with Radioland and Howard and Red Tails. I think he got to a point where he would prefer to not have the full responsibility, kind of in this Clint Eastwood way, while also not having anyone who could usurp him.
I'll also say, did you know that Radioland Murders is a prequel in the American Graffiti trilogy? Because Brian Brenman's character, these characters are the parents, I believe, of Richard Dreyfuss's character in American Graffiti.
Oh, wow.
So it's another trilogy, and it's a trilogy with a prequel in it.
You're gonna have to reauthor the disc now with that called out on the
Changes everything.
I bet it's in the comic.
You know, the funny thing is that I've released sequels, like Wayne's World 2, Lane 2.
Yeah.
And so more American Graffiti kind of makes sense because Universal's never gonna license.
You should look into it.
We are available for the commentary track. We'll do 59 commentary tracks. So,
Let's run it back.
but also, this is I know you said you're not a prequel guy, but this is your first Lucas prequel that you've released. So great job. It's funny. That is the type of move that, as George, I love doing, which is you come out hard against the prequels, and then by the end, George is like, "Well, thanks for releasing a prequel."
Seems like good luck. Yeah, well,
Do you think he ever made the experimental films he said he was going to?
We talk about it a lot. We love thinking that he did. I mean, the funny thing is, anybody can do this. Like when he was talking about, like, "Well, can't we do this?" It's so easy to make experimental personal films now. Everyone does them on their phones. Like it's all. And the idea that he wouldn't be is sort of baffling to
also, part of his promise when he announced that was small personal films that I'll never show to anybody.
Right.
So the fact that we haven't seen them is no proof that they don't exist.
Right.
He told us we'd never see them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I know it's what Jerry Lewis was doing. Jerry Lewis shot a lot of stuff with his friends, and
I hope there's Star Wars Detours, which is an entire TV series that he self-funded and produced, that when Disney bought Star Wars, that was part of it, and then it just never got released. And it's like 38 episodes that are like fully produced.
if I asked Mr. Lucas, how do you feel about the South Park?
I think he probably loves it. It's funny. You know, those guys, they go hard, but they always get the laughs. You know? I mean, I definitely think that like he likes being spoofed. He likes jokes. He's a comedy guy. Yeah, like his show Detours was actually made because he liked how much Robot Chicken was making fun of stuff, and he started cameoing there. And then at a certain point, he was like, "Hey guys, wouldn't you like to do this with like, let's do this the real way?
Yeah.
Let's have like come over to George."
That's how you guys started doing all the Star Wars.
Yeah, but he was always in favor of those things. Yeah.
All right, so I think we have time for one more question. How about one for Frank and Rob for Kino Lorber? This one is from a West Potato. He says, "Hi, I've submitted a question every single time you've solicited questions, and not once was mine picked. Well, today's your lucky day, West Potato." He says, "I'm wondering if you're planning on releasing more Peplin films like Hercules, Gladiator movies from Italy, etc., and classic TV gems like Columbo."
As far as the Hercules films, the Steve Reeves and Gordon Scott, those films, a lot of those films, the rights are in Italy, and the film elements are there. Even though some of those films are kind of considered public domain, it's almost impossible to get the good film elements to create a new transfer. We are looking into them. We have released them in the past. Yes, we do like Gladiator movies.
Sword and sandal movies.
As far as Columbo is concerned, I would love to do more TV shows. We're kind of looking into that, finding a way to do it. most of the time when I've picked up something, it's been stuff like Night Gallery or Culture episodes, short series, so it's easier to release those. Um, and we had Murder She Wrote at a certain point, and we went back to Universal and told them if they could take it back because the idea of releasing 12 seasons of 22 episodes, I was like, well, we're just probably going to take the whole year off, and now we're
I don't think presented you with the numbers on that one. Yeah.
yeah, and so Columbo was big and long, but we decided to break it up as 2 separate box sets, and Rob was very passionate about it, so I kind of handed off the keys to him and let him produce the whole thing. Of course, we know what happened with some of the great extras that we had produced, but and then yeah, so we're always looking into doing. I had 1 point wanted to do the Alfred Hitchcock Presents and Alfred Hitchcock Hour, but a lot of the episodes, especially in the last 2 seasons, are not cleared legally, so that if we did release it, we couldn't release the complete collection, and I had a lot of that. So
Well, before we wrap up, Rob, Frank, do you guys have any announcements? Any Kino Lorber Studio Classics announcements you'd like to make before we go?
no, not really.
No.
Next episode.
Next time. Okay.
Yeah, the one that
All right,
you
well,
and I will do in person. So
He's cooking something up.
yeah, we do.
He's-
We have a bunch of
very
Universal
excited.
titles in the we're gonna slowly announce. We were announcing stuff really early, and then sometimes you run into issues, and then the mass film elements would not be available, or a director who had oversee. And a year or two will go by, and I say, people, like, what happened to this release? And I'm like, well, we're still waiting. That's it's not easy, for releasing. So I kind of made a decision not to do so many early announcements and just kind of wait until we actually starting to remaster the film before we started announcing. I remember Universal asked me, why did we have to do 4 commentaries for Xanadu? And I said, well, I could explain the whole. First of all, one person was hired without us. One of my producers had hired Sam Deegan, and I didn't even know she was going to deliver one. So and there we had 2 commentaries, and then at a certain point, Sam Deegan's show left. Now we have 3, and then all of a sudden the director said, "Hey, I would do a commentary." Like, oh, okay. So
You can always use us to make that look reasonable. You can always be like, hey, we have one that has
We're
59.
gonna send the Blu-ray Universal. I'm George and Ricky.
she would have to QCO with the.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you to those who submitted your questions. Thank you so much, George Lucas Talk Show team, Connor, Griffin, Patrick. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Frank and Rob, thank you as always for your insight. You can all find the titles that we discussed today, along with thousands of others, at kinolorber.com. That link is in the description below. While you're there, sign up for our newsletter if you haven't already, and be sure to follow us on social. And be sure to check out I Am George Lucas, a Connor Ratliff story on Blu-ray. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.